What's up, everybody? It's Eric Stangler with Mixtapes. Today on the show, we're talking about Metal Ejection's 50 albums from 1992. This list is obviously more on the heavy side of music, but there are definitely some surprises. With me today is a friend who's been a guest on the show and has been deep in the music scene in 1992, especially. Welcome to the show, Mr. Mark Moots. How you doing today, sir?
Good. How are you, brother?
I'm doing wonderful, man. I'm excited you came on. Give the listeners, I think this will be kind of fun. Give the listeners a little backstory on what you were doing, where you were in 1992.
Okay. In 1992, I was in arguably, I think, what would have been the heyday of my record store career. And you'll understand the heyday part when you start hearing the list of things that are coming out, all these like monumental releases. Yeah, I was managing JJ's Ear Candy, Carson City, Nevada. Um, the music scene was exciting and vibrant and changing like right in front of our eyes, and I was extremely fortunate to be kind of on the front lines of it in a lot of ways. So life was solid in 92.
Well, you also went to Foundation Forum, which was a big
Yes,
thing,
that year.
right?
I think that year was my second year, I guess. So yeah, and that was a whole thing too. A lot of things that end up on here, we were hearing about at the show or the convention, and it was exciting to be even not on the front line, but like behind the curtain a little bit, as we discussed, record store guys got to do. We always had the secret before the public did.
Right, right. And it's definitely one of the reasons why I wanted you on the show. Also, you were
Yeah.
playing music. I mean, you still are, but you were
Yes.
playing music in probably, would you say your first real band in
Yeah.
92?
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. Mr. Buzzsaw and the Blasphemy Boys. Yeah. I think we were. I'd have to actually look, but I think this is when we were doing we put out a cassette entitled Bliss. And I think this is right around that time where we're either writing or preparing to put it out. Um, so yeah, we were doing that, and we were changing as well because we're impressionable and young and excited about new music, and you see or hear all this new stuff, and you're like, well, I'll have some of that, put it into this, and um, yeah. So and the Reno scene was fantastic then. I
Yeah.
mean, you had us, you had Wreckage. God, we played so many shows with those guys. So Discipline was still going. Reno's like premier hardcore band for sure. Uh, and I mean, I think we'd already lost maybe Rock On and Razor Maid and stuff like that. But there was Crystal Axe and
The metal
White.
scene was, yeah, the metal scene was getting big, or for sure.
Yeah.
And Reno was actually getting some national attention too from bands like the Mud Sharks. Like that
Yep.
band was
Yeah.
enormous, and it
Yeah.
was basically between them and No Doubt who got the
Yeah.
contract.
Yeah.
You know?
Now I remember
Uh,
I saw the Mud Sharks once, and they opened for a band that was on, I think, Capitol Records, called School of Fish, who were kind of being positioned to be a big deal, and they were a great band. But like Mud Sharks opened, there was like probably 1,500 people there, and when the Mud Sharks were done, there was about 300.
wow. Yeah, there were some
Like
legendary
place.
shows back in the day with
Yeah.
that band for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there was that Pantera had already come through twice, I think, at this point. So um, White Zombie, uh, right around then, we played with them over at the
Tumbleweed?
Tumbleweed. We
Right.
opened for White Zombie at the Tumbleweed. We also opened for Trouble, who's on this list, at the Tumbleweed. Um, yeah, like music scene was, man, it was good. It was good.
It was. I think 91 was another very interesting year. I did some shows
Yeah.
about some of the records in 91, and I think 91 and 92, what people don't realize is everybody talks about the grunge movement, but what we're
Hmm.
going to learn on today's show is it wasn't just the grunge movement. There was a lot of different styles
No.
of music that were really really percolating, I guess you would say, really. And it was weird to see because we saw where it went. Obviously, we're in the time machine right now. We saw where it went by 94, 95, 96, but like 91, 92 was, even 93 were very exciting years because there's a lot of bands on this list that you kind of go, oh, okay, I see. There's 50 albums on this list. We're not going to go through
Yeah.
all 50 because it would be a 5-hour pod, and I don't do 5-hour pods. So
Right.
we'll cherry pick some ones that meant a lot to us and a bunch of other things like that. So on to the list we go. There's a lot of things that I think are interesting. One of the first records that pops up when you look at this, because they did an alphabetical order from what
Yeah.
can see here, is
Yes.
Alice in Chains' Dirt. And
Yeah.
that one is, in my mind, an absolute game changer for that
Yeah.
genre. And I love that record. I really think them touring with everybody they toured with
Yeah.
kind of helped shape that sound, because Facelift, you can see it, but I think the Clash of the Titans tour really helped
Yeah.
them out. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And what are
Yeah.
your thoughts on that record?
Um, I think that Dirt is probably, we've had this discussion before about what is a perfect record. This one's like 1/10 off for me.
Yeah.
And it's just because of that sort of the noise interlude track with Tom Mariah screaming it. It's cool. It's not necessary, but like A minus probably.
Yeah.
If I'm being really critical. If I'm not, it's perfect. I mean, I don't. The only thing I don't care for anymore is Rooster, just because I've heard it too much.
I agree.
Other than that, like the there is that is a lightning in the bottle moment, and I don't think even as good as Facelift is. I agree. There's some parts that are like, okay, this is some of the older material, and you can see where they're going with some of the other songs, but this is like the everything gelled. I think the Clash of the Titans absolutely is a great point because they had to go out and like earn it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're opening for Slayer and Megadeth and Anthrax, and Slayer fans alone are incredibly unforgiving, classically, like Maiden fans. And they did it. They got spit on and shit thrown at them, and they just did their thing. And then they followed up with this record, which I can't. There's no fault.
No.
Plus, two of the best songs I think they've ever written, with "Down in a Hole" and "Rain When I Die." Bulletproof classics, like brilliant songwriting, incredibly emotional performances.
I
Them
don't.
Bones as the opener is mind blowing. You
And
know,
it's like, and this is going to sound crazy. I'm sure I'm going to get some shit from this, but I don't think
oh,
there's a more
good.
real record. Like
Mm,
when you hear that fucking record, like when I hear that record, I hear pain. I
yeah,
hear we're wearing whatever emotion we have completely on our sleeves on that record.
sadness.
Yes, yes.
A lot of it.
The reality,
Yeah,
the,
yeah.
the, the
No,
reality of getting caught in drugs, like bad
absolutely.
drugs.
Yeah. I mean, the only other downside I had is they gave that band Godsmack their name.
Yeah. Yes, unfortunately. Unfortunately. Yeah, the other thing too that not a lot of people know is when they were recording that record, that was during the LA riots.
Yep.
So they
Yep.
were like trying to get like hightail it out of there and other
Yeah.
stuff. And I think that definitely crept into the record,
I think
that.
so. There was a lot of uncertainty in the air in 91. I think the riots in particular, because it was like, holy shit, like the world's on fire.
Yep.
I know that the Fear Factory record, I heard Dino talking about how they were doing it during the riots, and there was a curfew. Like they had to get into the studio and get out of that part of town. And he said a lot of times they'd just stay, lock it all down, and sit on top of the roof and watch the city burn. And you can
Wow.
hear that in that record.
That's
The soul of a new machine. So yeah, I can't, of course it affected everything, but these guys were dealing with they were channeling their truth in a way that is astonishing, like 9.98 out of 10, you know.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the cool thing is we could talk about this record for the whole pod. I mean,
Oh, definitely.
it's
Yeah.
that good. It's you can tell on Facelift, like a lot of people don't realize that Alice in Chains was kind of a glam band, glam
Yep.
metal before they turned into who they were. And you can hear that on like some of those tracks on Facelift, but you don't hear that at all on Dirt. I mean, like they have
No,
figured
it's
out
gone.
their sound. Like another thing I think helped them too is they
Hmm.
toured with Pantera
Yep.
in the very beginning
Yeah.
too, and I think that helped them because they still kept to who they were, and that's another big thing. Let's talk about that for a second. So
Sure.
Pantera's on this list.
Yep.
Vulgar Display of Power is another one of those
Yep.
records that I know for me and you definitely changed the way we looked at some metal. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah.
I mean that's
Absolutely.
you want to talk about like that's the master of puppets of 1992, in my
Yeah.
opinion, with a lot of metal. And you still have a ton of Pantera clones to this day. I mean,
Oh, I think forever. Um, they became. I've said this before, and I think we've discussed it. But let's draw a fun little diagram here, real quick. So Van Halen 1 came out in '78. Is that right?
yeah, 78.
So you've got this, and I think you would agree that the second Van Halen 2 is probably a better record than Van Halen 1. I think it's a more realized version of what they were doing. Would you
I
agree
I
with that?
I would say Van Halen 2 is you can tell they toured a lot.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
because most of those songs were already written,
Yeah.
which
Okay.
is they
I
just
mean,
knew what they were
obviously,
doing more, if that
we
makes
won't
sense.
digress into Van Halen land
Yeah.
too much, but then you get into Women and Children, and
Fair warning, right.
Fair Warning. That's where they really
Yep.
stride.
Yep.
Okay, so but 1978, Van Halen releases Van Halen. You've got Ed, like game changer guitar player, right? You've got his brother, who's the drummer. You've got Michael Anthony on bass, who is the bedrock of that band. He creates the foundation along with Alex, and he's pretty overlooked and underrated, I think, because especially his harmonies and things
Yep.
like that. And
Bingo.
then you have Diamond David Lee Roth, who is the first frontman probably since Robert Plant, even though we all know he lifted it from Jim Dandy, and we don't need to get into that either. But like game changing frontman, and all of a sudden, how many bands are basically Van Halen clones, right?
Oh, a
And to
ton.
this day, the influence lives.
Yes.
Okay, so we go to 1990. That's Cowboys, I think.
Yeah, Cowboys is 90.
You've got Diamond Daryl at the time,
Right.
game changing guitar player.
Yep.
You have his brother, the drummer. You have Rex Brown, who again, pretty overlooked, but the most solid, like crushing tone in the pocket bass player.
Yep.
And you have Philip Anselmo, who now every frontman wants to be.
Yep.
Pantera is Van Halen.
It's crazy when you think about it, right?
Yeah, that's all it is. And so the influence lives as such. I mean, if you think about guitar players who are sadly no longer with us, and Ed sadly having just joined that group, it's pretty much Randy, Daryl, Edward.
Yep. You will get no. I will not disagree with you on that at all. And you're right, because if you really listen to Dime, and if you're fair, because sometimes Pantera fans aren't fair.
Yeah.
they
No,
can't. You know what I
they're
mean?
unreasonable.
Yes.
Unreasonable.
And not all of them.
Blind faith.
Yes, not all of them, but yes, a decent amount are, right? So
Yeah,
Dimebag is basically Eddie and Randy
absolutely.
with a little bit of early Metallica and a little bit of ZZ Top. I mean, that's really
I was gonna
Dime.
say you sprinkle Billy Gibbons and Ace Frehley on it with a little bit of Hetfield, and
Yeah, that's him.
Dimebag.
And really, honestly, tremendous player. That record,
Yeah.
that record for me was a game changer, and I think that's the record that I think put the fork in the road, if that made sense, where it was kind of like, you have, and let's just do this. Let's continue on the conversation, right? Because we can talk about that record forever, right?
Yeah, that'd
So
be a whole show.
it would be really. So that record hits, and the fork in the road, in my opinion, is Metallica Black,
Mm-hmm.
Vulgar Display of Power. That's my
Yep.
fork, and then
Yep.
so you have a lot of bands, not a lot, but there's a decent amount of bands on this list that went down the Metallica Black road, right?
Yeah, you sure do.
Now, there's at least three I see.
Yep.
I'll throw three out. If you see another one, let me know. But Exodus, Megadeth,
Force a Habit.
yep,
Yep.
Megadeth Countdown, and
Yep.
Testament.
Correct. Those are the ones that I saw.
What's the one out of the three that's the best?
Okay.
And for our audio listeners, he just gave me a big smile when I asked that question.
Truth be told, I don't like any of them. And I was never a big Exodus fan, so
Me
that's
neither.
fine.
Yeah.
I appreciate Exodus, but I was never a fan.
Sure.
Testament, big fan. And Megadeth, big fan. Megadeth's is the best one.
I agree.
Hands down. Hands
I agree.
down.
I agree.
Better songwriting, Marty fucking Friedman. But like, I don't like that record. I missed the teeth and the hair of like the snarl of Dave when it seemed honest, as opposed to "Hello, me, it's me again" thing. It didn't work for me. I don't want AC/DC in my Megadeth.
Do you think that Dave chasing Metallica really hurt Megadeth?
Yeah, I also think it really helped them. I think it hurt them if you're some sort of purist, like I'm alluding to,
Right.
because all of a sudden they're not a thrash band anymore, and especially following what is arguably such a masterpiece, rest in peace.
Completely agree.
And then it's like, oh, we're going to be on the radio for sure. Did that hurt them? It depends on where you're at. For me, yeah, as a fan, absolutely. I got off the bus. But at very much the same way that Metallica did with the Black Album, if you were a Justice guy, that's your fork.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
But the interesting thing about that is, in Metallica, and honestly Megadeth are kind of proof in the pudding, that they could put out records that their air quotes fans don't like, but man, they're going to the show.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you have thousands, millions of people buying the record, but like thousands more every night. So did it hurt them? That's debatable. Depends on what your definition is, I suppose. I'm sure it didn't hurt their bank accounts.
No, definitely not. It's a great question, right? When you think about
It's a great question. I think it hurt Exodus.
Yes.
I think it hurt Testament.
Yes, I agree.
But as far as Megadeth goes, no, I don't think it hurt them in the grand scheme of things. I think it cemented them as having a longer career.
It definitely saved
a successful career.
Yeah, it saved them. It's weird because in that time period, like we talk about that fork in the road, because another band that did that, and you're going to agree with me on this one, but I think they did it in the right way, was the next year. Do you know the record I'm talking about? What's the one band that pivoted the next year after all these records came out in 92, and it was more commercial, but it was probably one of their better sounding records. Like, I think they did it the right way.
I don't know which one you're...
Got a different singer for the record? He's one of your favorite
singers? Anthrax.
Yep.
Yeah, Sound of White Noise.
Yep.
Yeah. And we will do a whole episode about that.
Oh, I would love to talk about that record, because that was the record that I fell off the wagon on for Anthrax, and then I went back and revisited and was like, my God, this is such a great record.
Yeah.
You know, I think also too, label pressure. It was probably a combination of wow, look what Metallica's doing.
Oh yeah.
And wow, and also there's uncertainty, like when I talked to John Corabi, he was talking about seeing Nirvana on Nevermind, that tour in Europe, and
Yeah.
and I forget, one of the guys in the band was like, this band's going to be the next biggest thing. So I think in the back of
Yeah.
their minds, you're feeling that change. Like
Yep.
I do feel like you can feel that change as a musician when you're in a
For
certain
sure.
time period where you're like, this ain't working anymore. This is working. Let's talk about a fun one for me. I enjoy this
Yeah.
one because it's to me it's so utterly ridiculous that I love it. Body
Hmm.
Count.
Okay. Yeah.
The Body Count record. It's so it's great because it's just Body Count. I mean,
It's
it.
body motherfucking count. Yeah, I mean, I think that what really helped that was two things. Obviously, original gangster,
Yep. Yep.
Ice-T. I mean, he's awesome. He always was. He always will be.
Completely
But
agree.
cop killer.
Yep. Yep.
Um, the fact that suddenly Bob Dole is talking about body count,
Yep.
and hi Fenris. Okay. um, as a record, ridiculous is a good word. I think that is absolutely a style over substance record.
Yeah.
I don't even think it was supposed to be like good. I think it's like, to me, and it's like a Guar record.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although Scumdogs is a great record. But it's funny, it's ridiculous. I understand that it might be sincere in a lot of ways, but like there's another record that came out this year that does everything they're trying to do so much better, because Rage Against the Machine's first album came out.
Oh man, the one thing I want to say about Body Count before we jump into Rage Against the
Yeah.
Machine is that was the first time that I heard like holy shit lyrics that were
Yeah.
controversial in so many different directions.
Yep.
But like I felt like the person talking to me about it could legitimately talk to me about it, if
Yeah.
that makes
No,
sense.
I would totally agree with that. I mean, it was because I think right around this time, and I would have to look it up, but like I was definitely listening to, as many metalheads had discovered hip hop,
Yeah.
in like a meaningful way, not in
Right.
like Run DMC's on MTV or whatever, but like, so I want to say that Ghetto Boys album came out this year too. The mugshot, the 4 mugshots of
The one
Ghetto
with
Boys self.
the one with Mind Playing Tricks on
Mine's
Me.
playing tricks on
I
me.
think that's
Yeah.
91.
Is it 91? Okay.
Yeah, which
So,
is right
but
in the ballpark.
yeah, we're in so like I was listening to that. I was listening to Chuck, Public Enemy, who
Eric B and
had that,
Rakim.
Eric B and Rakim, KRS-One, Boogie Down
Yep.
Productions, Paris from the Bay, who was like Rakim of the West Coast, and those records are insane. Um, and I was listening to Ice-T stuff. I just think that as a, a fucking snob, I couldn't take Body Count seriously. And to make it even better, I saw them at Foundations Forum that
Did
year.
you? Oh
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. They played either before or after Sepultura, which is on this list, Chaos AD.
Yep.
And Sepultura played Territory with no vocals because Max hadn't written them yet, but he play new song, and
Best stage presence.
best ever. That guy can count to 4, can he?
Oh my god. I saw
In
them
2
open up for
languages.
Pantera and I was like, he's not really saying anything I understand. And then all I hear is 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, cool.
But God, how hard did Sepultura rip though?
Dude,
I mean,
they were amazing. Amazing.
Every time I saw them, it was a clinic. Especially Igor. I mean, good Lord.
Oh,
That drum.
that whole band's really underrated, man. We don't talk about
Yeah.
them enough in metal in terms of individual players.
I agree. Andreas is an incredibly creative guitar player.
Great classically influenced guitar player. Another Randy Rhoads disciple.
Yep, and a riff beast.
Oh, absolutely.
Max gets all the credit, and I think he deserves, a third of it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. The body count record for me is just like I said, one of those things where it's like you
Yeah.
hear, there goes the neighborhood, and you're just like, wow, okay, like, and then you're just
Yep.
laughing because you're like, if I wanted to cover this, I couldn't even cover this. You know what I mean? Like it's
No, no.
just
Where are you going to play that?
exactly. But I think it was cool because it gave more of an insight, which a lot of metal fans didn't really totally have that insight. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
Rage Against the Machine. Let's talk about that one for a second because that's a
Sure.
great kind of segue. I remember the first time I heard that record, just going, "Wow, this is really cool," because
Yeah.
it I love a lot of old funk, and it kind of gave
Hmm.
me that taste of the old funk. I like tight rhythms. I like, I
Hmm.
felt like early Rage was real solid. I mean, I believed it. Yeah, it was a great fucking record, and that was another one of those records where it's like, this is what I love about '91 and '92. Okay, so Rage is the first record I saw on here going, that's not really a metal record. Or, we're talking about most of these, albums on here are metal records per se. But it's like in the scope of things, where do you put that record in 1992? Do you see what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
it doesn't fit in a category per se. And I think 91 and 92 had a lot of that before we tried to categorize every little thing into 9 jillion subgenres. I mean,
Yeah.
you know what I
Well,
mean?
you're looking at the 91, 92 is when all of a sudden the term alternative music was the move, right?
Yeah.
Um, I kind of disagree. I think it's kind of a metal record.
Do you really?
Not in the sense of Judas Priest and things like that, but the
Sure.
spirit of it is that, or it's a hardcore record,
That's an interesting point right there that I never
like a
equate
crossover
to that.
record.
Right, right, because Zach doesn't rap all the time on that record. There's a lot of
No.
screaming. There's a lot
Oh
of.
boy.
Do you see what I'm saying though? And there's a
The
lot of
the
there's a lot of
the
repeated lyrics.
Yep.
You
The
know what I mean?
anger that dude expresses on that record is
Man,
like visceral.
it's
And
second.
and
It's second to none in that
and
year.
if you want to talk about like honesty,
Yep.
I believed every word he said on that record.
Me too.
Um but the reason I would say I do think it can be considered, and I had it in the metal section at the store, which is where my brain went.
Sure.
Okay, so the riffs, well, yes, there is some funk influence. The riffs are Zeppelin and Sabbath.
I don't disagree with you on that.
Like they're just like heavy pentatonic, like
Yeah.
hard rock metal riffs, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it totally worked. How clever,
Yeah.
to use these big massive grooves with nice minor pentatonic stuff underneath it, and then you've got Zach just roaring all over it. Dynamics are great. Like I don't necessarily I haven't listened to it in a million years, but yeah, like what a great record. And it was a game changer, like
Yes.
big time. That was one of those introductions to something that um I remember people just weren't ready for it.
Not at all. Not at
But
all.
when I got the advance, I put it in the tape deck, and it was like, holy shit,
Yeah.
wow. And I think what grabbed me the most was how angry it was,
Yeah.
um, which has always spoke to my little black heart. Um, and the hip hop thing was already a thing that was happening. I mean, we had Bring the Noise, what, a year or so before that, and um, another album on this list that definitely has hip hop influence and is a hardcore record. The Biohazard, Urban
Biohazard. I
Discipline,
knew
man.
I knew you were going there, man.
Like, dude, the only bummer about Biohazard's Urban Discipline is I saw them at Foundations that year too. Um, Live, they were a force of nature. Like, were so heavy and so powerful, and the production. I remember when we landed in Reno coming home, I couldn't wait to put that tape in the deck because we got advances of it.
Right.
And that production lets that whole thing down. But you can't deny that video for Punishment where they're walking across the Brooklyn Bridge and they're all mean mugging and it's like all these DMS guys and stuff behind them, and it was like, oh, these guys are serious. Like,
Definitely, you can feel the New York City vibe on
oh
that.
my God, yeah, Brooklyn, baby. Like,
But it's great that you bring that up too, because one of the other things I think that hurts some of these records is the production value.
absolutely.
And
Oh yeah,
as metal got more popular, the production values went up, but the production was only. It's almost like they only had a certain budget for certain bands they wanted to put into it. Like,
for sure.
like Metallica always sounded good, Maiden sounded good. There were certain bands they knew, okay, we know we're going to sell 1 million records or a little bit
Mhm.
more, because really Metallica was not a big juggernaut sales wise really until Justice and then Black knocked the door open. Most of those,
Oh my God,
what
yeah,
people don't realize is like Ride the Lightning sold maybe about 1 million copies, and then it, like,
yeah.
as they started getting more popular, more people went in the back catalog, right? So there wasn't, like, I mean, some of those early Testament records sound like dick, and they're
Oh,
good
dude,
records. You know
the
what I mean?
Legacy sounds terrible, but I
Ugh.
love the Legacy.
See, I do too, and it's like, Hotter Than Hell from Kiss is my favorite Kiss record, and good
Yeah,
lord, the production on that is probably one of the worst,
yeah,
maybe of all time. Really, it's really
yep.
bad. It's really
No, it's
bad, but
atrocious.
you
That's the
know,
reason it's not my favorite Kiss record.
because of the
Mine's
production.
mine's Dressed to Kill, But
Well, and that's and it's like you start to see, the budget goes up a bit, and then
yep,
things change, right? Or,
yep,
there's the fork in the road with the Black Album again. The Black
yep,
Album comes out because really look at Vulgar, right? And then look at Far Beyond Driven.
yeah,
Sonically, it's
yeah.
just hello. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah,
It's
no,
so different because they were successful. Another
yep.
band I want to throw into that hat because I think it's important is Helmet's Meantime record.
Yep.
Another. They're like. Tell me I'm wrong, but are they like the King's X of that genre? You know what I
They
mean?
might be. That.
Hold on one second. For the
Yeah,
listeners that don't understand what I just said, his King's X is probably one of the best bands that's so underappreciated. It's ridiculous. So I'm not
easily.
slagging Helmet. I'm saying Helmet didn't get a fair shake, just like King's X didn't get a fair shake. And we can talk about that all day long, but I just don't know why people didn't grab on to those two bands. And maybe it's an influx of that. Like, Helmet was just kind of like, they were kind of like lunch pail guys, man. Like they showed up, they
Uh,
played. There wasn't like
yep.
this big like imagery around that band. There
Mhm.
wasn't a bunch of like, what's the word I'm looking for? There wasn't a bunch of drama with that band. It was like
Nope.
they just came and played. And I think sometimes in the day and age, especially in that day and age, when everybody was over the top to a degree, that
Yeah.
probably hurt that band.
No, they were very workmanlike, you
Yeah,
know. But Meantime did some numbers,
it did.
and MTV was playing the shit out of it's not In the Meantime. What's Unsung,
Unsung. Oh
right?
yeah,
Yeah. That
absolutely.
was a hit. That was a
Yeah.
hit. And it was on Headbangers Ball and 120 minutes.
Yep.
Like it cross platformed.
Yep.
But I think that could have screwed them because then what are they?
Exactly. Exactly.
I think Quicksand had the same problem.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
but yeah, I mean, God, Meantime is what's funny is the album before Meantime, Strap It On. I was introduced by the to that band on that album by Phil Anselmo.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Yep, he was in. They did the in store at our record store, and they were picking out stuff. We were just going to give them a shitload of stuff and expense the record company.
Yeah.
And I had it. I'd ordered it. I didn't know what it was. It was on Amp Rep, Amphetamine Reptile, which sold pretty well, noise rock stuff. And Phil picked it up and he's like, "Dude, have you heard this shit?" I'm like, no. He's like, "You need this." And I was like, "All right." So obviously the next when we replaced it, I was like, "Well, I'll take that." You know. Um, and I am gonna put a little bow on this. Watch this. So uh, they were aware of it, and I think that there was a real similarity between what happened on Vulgar and what bands like Helmet were doing because they were so groove based. And Pantera, there's a big leap from Cowboys to Vulgar. and an even bigger one, I think, to Far Beyond. But the groove thing became the core of what Pantera did on Vulgar, right?
Yes.
Now, the other band that Philip introduced me to when I was talking to him, and there's some controversy behind that because there's always been this discussion that Pantera ripped this band off,
Oh, and they're on the list too, aren't they?
and Exhorder
Yep.
released The Law. And I don't know if anybody listening, hopefully you're familiar, and if you're not, please ignore the atrocious production, but good God,
Yep.
that Exhorder record, in a perfect world, absolutely gives Vulgar a run for its money on every level, except for maybe the leads.
Right.
Kyle Thomas's vocals are just insanely good. The grooves are great. The tone is awful. The songs are awesome. They do that great cover, that Sabbath cover on there. And like it's one of those things that I think is a gem that just not enough people know about. And that band in general, I think it's a shame that they're not at least in the conversation at the level of somebody like Biohazard, or like they're just really special.
And they're in this. They were
And
in the same area too, weren't they? Both those.
they're
Bands?
from New Orleans.
Right. Right.
Like Phil and Kyle are friends. I mean,
God, that's
I
got to
took
be awkward.
no, I mean, I took lessons from Kyle for a little bit, and he doesn't even care. But and they're still friends. But the reason Phil introduced me to that band, because I was sitting talking to him, and he was like, "You look like my buddy Kyle from Exhorder," and I was like, "Oh, that's weird." I don't, but okay. Uh, thanks. Yeah. So that Exhorder album, The Law, is, I think it's one of the gems on here for me, and it made me smile when I saw it, because everybody talks about their first album, which I don't really care for. It's a thrash album. Like it's a really angry, aggressive, really fast thrash album, but I think it's just not my thing. But The Law like took my head off. And outside of the production, I swear to God, it's incredible.
It's amazing how that happens a lot, and people don't realize that. And you do, though, because of all the years that you worked in a record store.
Mm,
You know that for every Pantera, there's
yep.
2 or 3 bands right around that same little circle
Yeah.
that doesn't make it for one reason or another. You know what I
Yep.
mean? So it's like one of the other things we'll talk about real quick, and I know you can definitely carry this conversation, is a lot of doom and
Yeah.
sludge and stoner metal released in
Hmm.
'92. Kaya's
Yep.
Candlemass.
Yep.
There's a lot of stuff on there.
Yeah.
And didn't Sleep release something in '92 that they're not giving credit to?
Sleep's Holy Mountain.
I could swear it's '92.
I think it
I'll look it up right now while we're talking
yeah, I was going to say, I'm
because
not sure that Holy Mountain came out. I want to say it was more like 94, but I could definitely be wrong. Um,
because
yeah,
that's a big fuck
huge.
up if they don't if that came out in '92, because they are a very influential band. But here's the other
Oh
weird thing
yeah,
about this style of music, and tell me if I'm wrong.
sure.
This style of music doesn't get its due when it's coming out. It's like this
Yep.
revival, like a decade and a half later, is where,
Yeah.
which is really interesting, right? It's
I,
something,
I I think it's one of those things where, like, you're famous when you're dead.
yeah,
People
yeah.
don't appreciate you until you're gone, as Tom Kiefer saying something like that once. But I agree. I think that I was looking at that, and it's like, okay, so yeah, you've got Candlemass puts out chapter 6. Um, you've got well, there's the Exhorder thing. Man, there's so much cool stuff here, and it's a long thing.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
sleep.
people.
No,
Yeah,
no, it's
Caius
totally cool.
Blows for the Red Sun.
Let me interrupt you real quick. Holy
Go.
Mountain came out in '92.
Oh, well, then that is a huge faux pas. I'm actually gonna
Huge.
scroll down. It's not on here. They
No,
actually put Saint Vitus on instead,
I
and
know.
that's a. I mean,
Wino, obviously, but
Yeah, Vitus is great, but like Matt Pike in Sleep, come on, come on. You can't not talk about that. Um, so yeah, the Doom thing became a big like player. Oh, Trouble, Manic Frustration
yep,
came out too.
yep.
Great record, like incredible record actually. But there's a lot of things that interestingly are influenced by the Doom stuff as well that wouldn't be straight. Like Paradise Lost released Shades of God. That's doom death,
Right,
like
right.
gothic doom death metal, and that's a great record. Arguably Obituary is a doom death band at that point still.
White Zombie
um
has some of that vibe on
White
that
Zombie
on that
has that.
record.
My Dying Bride released As the Flowers Wither. Like there's so much like the interesting thing about 92 is I can see the birth of a lot of things, the kind of the overextension of a lot of things, and then where bands start really kind of right turn, on people.
Yeah.
Angel Dust came out that year with Faith
Can,
No More.
can we talk about
Um,
that one for a second?
please, yeah,
Because here's what's funny about that, and this is going to be such an unpopular opinion, and I'm okay with it.
okay,
They lost me on Angel Dust, even though Angel Dust is an amazing record, and it's one of those ones that I want to go back to. And that's a
yeah,
question I'll have for you later. But it's one of those records where I love The Real Thing. I just
sure,
thought The Real Thing was fucking great. And then Angel Dust was one of those ones where it's like, it kind of lost me, where I was thinking they were going to go a little more in the direction of The Real Thing, but they didn't.
nope,
Talk to me about that record and how important, because I know how important that record was to musicians in that
yeah.
time period. And that I think is the record that musicians look at for Faith No More going, that's like the pinnacle of Faith No More.
I think I mean I agree. I loved The Real Thing. I really loved it. Honestly, outside of From Out of Nowhere, which I think is a fine little song, or not
Right.
From Out of Nowhere,
Not
Epic.
where
So
nowhere.
I'm sorry, Epic. From Out of Nowhere is great. There's some great stuff on The Real Thing, and I
Totally
really
agree.
loved that record. For me, when I heard Angel Dust, and especially like this, the first single was Midlife Crisis, and it was just like dark and like ugly and moody, and it spoke to me like immediately, because what I didn't want them to do was do more of what they had done.
Right.
They were one of the few bands I can think of that just pivoted and did literally exactly what they wanted to do, in my opinion, and it was like a slam dunk. And I think they even went too far in certain instances on purpose to alienate all those fans who only liked Epic. I think it was a reactionary record. I think they knew that they didn't want to be that like, oh, the singer raps, and they were getting the Anthony Kiedis, Mike Patton
Oh yeah.
comparisons. And like, I guarantee all those dudes were like, fuck that. And so they went deep and hard with the second record. And I think that I remember watching them on like in some TRL live thing or something, and it's like, oh, here's Faith No More, and they didn't even play the single. They played that song Caffeine, which is just half like just ludicrous screaming, and and like it gave me chills. I was just like, oh, this is the best thing I've ever witnessed. Like how little they cared, how punk rock they were about that,
Yeah.
and it worked. For
Yep.
me, it is even down to the imagery. You have this beautiful cover on the front with the
Love the
swan with,
cover. Love the
and
cover.
then the butchery on the back, like just bloody meat everywhere. That sums that record up really beautifully, I think. Um,
The one bad thing about that record is, and it's funny how you said the Anthony Kiedis thing too, because you can go down a pretty funny rabbit hole if you choose to out there, listener land, with the problem the two of those had with each other. It's kind of funny, but really, that band and the Chili Peppers, you can pretty much blame about 80% of starting new metal. I
yeah,
hate to say it.
no, you're right. You're right. And I guarantee neither one of them want to cop to it.
Nope.
And I don't blame them.
I don't either. But that
I would,
Corn was saying so much about Faith No More and Red Hot Chili Peppers being like the two
yeah,
big influences, and it's true when you listen to that.
it is,
You can hear
but
it.
at least they did their thing with it.
Correct.
I think that Faith No More record was so important because it was that kind of big middle finger to the face of not just record company expectations, but also to their fans.
Artistic creativity is
Yeah,
something that's being lost a lot nowadays, and I think I have respect for anybody that's like, I'm gonna do this. I don't give a shit. If you like it, great. If you don't, fuck off. And I'm
I
totally okay with that.
yep. I think it was an incredibly honest move, and I loved it, not only because I was on board with where they were going, but I love the spirit of it. I think there's a few songs on there, Caffeine being one of them, that it's a masterpiece. Like, it's great. But I also stuck with them all the way up until they left us for quite a while.
Yeah,
I love the follow-up albums where they kind of were like, okay, we'll strip it back down and kind of be like this weird rock band. And then people really didn't care. But
well, and because now you're talking like 95,
yep.
right? And now you're talking like no one knows what the fuck's going on with the music scene.
No,
You,
everything's just in this constant state of flux,
it's
and
just
there's no ground to stand on.
there's
Um,
none at all. The one thing we talked about before we hit play today, or record, I should say, is how many of these bands are still around
so many.
making music?
Um,
Which would you have thought that? I mean, honestly, for me, I know I can look at this list and go, there's no fucking way I could have seen Megadeth still putting out records in
no,
2021 or 2022. I mean, there's so many of these
yeah.
bands that are still existing.
Not only that, Megadeth has an album coming out this year that people are excited about.
Yeah, yeah.
That's even weirder. Like, it's one thing for them to be putting out a record again, but like, there's some heat behind this record. You know, I'm actually looking forward to hearing it for the first time in a very long time.
Think
I
about think about this. Think about, and this is so weird, right? But think about the irony of Megadeth kind of reclaiming the thrash kind of heavy flag, right? And now Metallica, in my opinion, is almost trying to catch Megadeth in a way. You know what
mm,
I mean? Where it's like Metallica went so far down the rabbit hole
yep,
and then kind of realized, oh shit. And Megadeth's like, hey, hi guys. We,
they've been there the
want to come
last
back over
few.
this way? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
because Dave, they released, what was that? Is it Risk? Was that, yeah, Risk?
I was out
Which,
by
like,
Risk. I was
yeah, no,
gone,
I was well gone, but
gone.
like, even they are like, that was, they jumped the shark there.
Yeah,
But then after that, like, they lost the major label deal. They're on like Roadrunner or something, and Dave started putting out like thrash records again.
yep, yep,
And shortly after that, you're right. Like, all of a sudden, Metallica is trying to sound like Metallica again,
yep.
and failing, in my humble opinion. Sorry, Metallica fans. Um,
You're
Not
not wrong.
really.
You're not wrong though,
Sorry,
man. It's
no, I'm not.
it's the midlife. Let's talk about this real quick, and then we'll get
Yeah,
off of it because we're still doing 92. But
yeah,
I think Saint Anger
mm,
was Metallica's midlife crisis record,
yeah,
where they're playing with all these bands that are like in this new, love them or hate them. I personally love the first two System records. The first two
sure,
System of a Down records I fucking love, right? There's so much stuff in that time period that sounds nothing like Metallica.
yeah.
And then Metallica's like, I really think that's their midlife crisis record. It's like
I agree.
we don't sound like
I
anybody. Oh no, everybody's passing us by, even
Yep,
though they could still be that band that plays 20,000 seat arenas,
yeah,
off their back catalog. They still could.
yeah. No, I mean, that's, man, you're opening up a real can of worms there.
I know, I
As far
know.
as conversation goes, I agree with you. Let's leave it at that. Maybe we can revisit that someday. Um, I think that what's interesting about that is, yeah, there are a lot of bands that are still here. I mean, shit, Body Count's still putting out records.
Much better band behind him now, by the way, with Body Count.
Yeah, well, and better songwriters,
Yes.
because like they farm all that shit out.
Yes. You can
Like
tell.
in the last Body Count record, the stuff I heard was actually like it's pretty good. I think
I was with
they
you on
won a
that.
Grammy, didn't they?
I think they did.
So like,
when he, dude,
holy
could you imagine that 1992? I tell you,
holy shit!
hey Moots, I'm coming from the future, and in 2020 or whenever it was, Body
Right?
Count's
Yeah,
gonna win a Grammy. You'd be like, get the fuck out of my store.
yeah. It'd be like, get the fuck out of here. You don't know what you're talking
What are
about.
you talking about, Stegland?
So okay, so I want to parlay that into a weird thing. As far as talking about how everything was in flux and there were bands kind of trying to either recapture or move with the times. Sadly, a band that will never be with us again, not in this instance, but Black Sabbath released Dehumanizer. The return of Ronnie James Dio
Yep.
flopped,
Yep.
like didn't. And I think that there's a lot of things that contribute to that. But the biggest thing I think is that the musical climate didn't want to hear from those old guys anymore, even though they were probably in their 40s, you know. I think the cover's terrible, I think, but it is a dark, moody, aggressive Black Sabbath. And Ronnie's like pissed. Like there's anger in his voice on that record that I have never heard before. And I love that record so much. And I think that I had to even just shoehorn it into the conversation because I think it's an important record. And I think that it gets completely overlooked by people at large because when they think of Ronnie and Sabbath, they just think of Heaven and Hell, maybe Mob Rules. And I think that Heaven and Hell is a perfect, like, it's my favorite Sabbath record, period. But I think Mob Rules is really underrated as well. And I think this album is at least as good as Mob Rules.
I don't disagree with you, man. And I'll tell you a couple. I'll tell you where I was in that climate. I was a huge Ozzy Sabbath guy. I wasn't a Dio guy at first. I was like, Sabotage is my favorite Sabbath record. Like I am an Ozzy Sabbath guy.
Yeah.
And later on I started getting into Dio more. And then I was like, God damn, Heaven and Hell's a great fucking record. Like it's really good. And it's Sabbath, but not Sabbath. Where I think Sabbath went wrong, and I agree with you on this, because people weren't in that climate to want to listen to Sabbath because of how everything changed. And it was kind of like the Metallica midlife crisis thing. But I don't think that was with that Sabbath record. Because I went back and re-listened to it just recently. I was like, God damn, this is a good record. You're totally right. The cover is just so dumb. And sometimes, I hate to say it, covers definitely do affect if someone picks something up. But we're
100%.
going, Mob Rules is 81 or 82, right? I can't remember. I think it's 82.
It's 82.
I think it's 82.
Yeah.
So you're looking at a whole decade of garbage Sabbath, of Sabbath not knowing what they're doing. Tony Iommi has kind of like a
there's
Sabbath,
there's a couple good Tony Martin records. Like, let's be fair. There's a couple.
But let's think about this, though.
You're not wrong. But,
you know what I'm saying? I mean, they went through a pretty bad period where, they get together with Ozzy again for Live Aid. Nothing materializes from there. There's so much like uncertainty, and the ship like feels like it's going to sink at any moment, right?
Yeah.
Then they put out Dehumanizer, and no one really gives a shit, like popularity wise, because you have that record, but then you have all these other records. It's like, and then you have 91, which is such a strong year, where you've got Bad Motorfinger, and you've got these great records, and you're thinking you've got Pantera's, Cowboys and other stuff. You can tell the climate's changing. So it's one of those records where if you look back now, you can go, boy, a lot of people missed the boat on this record.
I agree. I remember first I remember reading that Ronnie was working with them again, and I thought, well, that's very interesting. But I also was a little concerned, I guess, because it's like, kind of why?
Yeah, exactly.
It seemed a bit like a Hail Mary to me at the time, and maybe it was. But when I heard the record, I just thought, my God, like as a Dio slash Sabbath fan, what's not to love here, you know? But I can tell you, I couldn't give that record away.
I believe that.
Like sight unheard, I could. It didn't sell. Like nobody cared. Not even not the older fans. Not certainly not the young fans. But then I would play it for people, and they'd be like, "Oh shit, it's actually pretty fucking good." I was
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, it really is." But it's just wrong time. Like too late. Honestly, it's kind of one of those things where it's a little too late. And I think it will be one of those records that people look back on, as you were saying, hindsight being 2020, and it's a classic.
I
um
agree with you completely, man.
I love it. I think that it's really important. It's one of my favorite records on this list, and I have a lot of them.
Like we talked about earlier, it's a great year for music. Here's another interesting question, because I know you're not a big fan of this band,
Yeah.
but did you ever think that Tool with Opiate would turn into
Yeah.
what Tool did today?
Okay, so interesting story. I saw Tool 3 times on the Opiate EP.
Okay.
um I loved the Opiate EP. I also loved Undertow.
Loved Undertow.
um so no, I didn't. I thought that they were really on to something special. And especially the first time I saw them, they were playing in Davis, at like this tiny place. There was like 50 people there,
Oh wow.
and they were just intimidating, because Maynard
Great
had
word.
that thing where he would just like zero in on somebody and just stare at like one dude for the whole set, like stare at him like into his fucking soul. And he had that weird like road warrior
Mohawky
mohawk,
thing.
and
Yep.
he was all lurchy and intimidating. And then I saw them again with Rollins band, which was a hell of a show. um I thought they were great, and I did think that there was something really special going on. What I never would have guessed is the trajectory that they took, where it's like, hey, let's take forever in between everything,
Yeah.
and somehow people are going to care still.
And
But
they still do. It's crazy, right? I
still
mean,
do.
I like Tool a lot, but I feel like I've heard Tool enough,
Yep.
and then they put out another record. And I'm like, I kind of heard this one 15 years ago. That's the other thing that just,
Mm,
it's kind of like, I don't understand how you don't write something different 15 years later
I don't
with the
know
same
how. Yeah.
guys. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
don't understand how that happens.
You have that long in between, and you basically put out a different version of the same
Yeah.
thing.
And that's been what,
That's
3
what.
albums in a row that they've done that on, essentially?
Yeah. Yeah. And they lost me basically after Enema. um I was kind of good, you
Yeah.
know. I respect the band. I won't say I'm a fan, and I understand that they're very talented. I just find that it doesn't move me. I won't say I don't care, but it doesn't move me. I'd rather not, is a
And,
better
and
way to put
and
it.
I like that opinion you have about that, because it shows that you can appreciate, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? But it shows like not my cup of tea anymore. You know what I
Yeah, and
mean?
if you talk to me in 92, I would be like, fuck that band. you know, I've softened in my old age to where it's like I realized that I don't have to be the music police anymore. It's not my job. And if people enjoy something, even if I find it really just distasteful and bad, that's not just great. I'm just glad you're listening to something that makes you happy. I'm just gonna not ever listen to that.
And you know, and that's a beautiful thing about that. One of the things I also want to talk about in this list too, it's almost like it's really kind of neat because we can almost categorize a lot of different
Yeah.
genres in this thing. Ministry,
Oh,
9 Inch Nails,
yep.
um, you know, Reznor's an interesting character. I completely lost
Indeed.
all respect for him after watching that. God, what was that movie? Was it The Hired Guns or whatever? Where
Oh
he
yeah,
basically
yeah.
just, oh my God! But it's,
Just
uh, but
yeah.
it's he's okay. take me through those two bands. Like
Yeah.
obviously really important records. You think
Mm,
Trent was influenced by Ministry and went that
yeah.
direction, and then just went like, I'm gonna do that better than you guys can do that direction? Do you think that happened, or what do you? I mean,
I think that Trent was, I would venture to guess he was absolutely influenced by what Al was doing with Ministry. I
right?
don't think there's any question in that. Um, and if you look at Ministry, the album prior, The Mind is a Terrible Thing to Taste. You can hear what, um,
Where it's going?
what Nine Inch Nails did
Yeah,
on their first record, but it's in that order. Um, I think that EP that Nine Inch Nails put out that year is the most like, it's the heaviest, most metal thing they ever did.
yeah.
And I think that what happened was Trent did it and then just was like, yeah, I don't want to do that anymore. Because Downward Spiral is nowhere near as aggressive.
No, I think it's
That,
more of that. Like he's a really intelligent musician. He's gifted for sure, and I think it's
for
one of
sure.
that guy, that type of personality. I think they can't stay on one specific
Yeah.
plane where it's like, I did this, like you said, great point. I want to kind of go there now, because you see how it was like danceable in the very beginning of Nine Inch Nails,
Hmm.
like kind of had that like, that kind of feel, but then you see it keep turning, right?
Yeah.
But like where it kept turning was interesting, and it was
Yeah.
like it just was going to get to the point where it can't turn anymore, essentially. But I think there's a lot
Yep.
of growth on those first four records.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I would be Team Ministry.
Yeah,
Um, I liked, what is it? Pretty Hate Machine. Is that the name of the first one? Nine Inch Nails.
yeah,
Um, I liked it. Like Head Like a Hole's a banger for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
The danceability didn't appeal to me
Me
at the
neither.
time. But like that song Wish is brutal, brutal.
Yes.
However, if you're gonna, let's compare apples to apples then. Wish versus Just One Fix, get out of here.
Yeah.
Ministry, that is like an exercise in brutality. That album is every bit as brutal and as aggressive as any of these death metal bands on here. But it's that mechanical, cold. The only thing that comes close is Fear Factory.
I don't disagree with you, man. I remember a place me and you used to play called the Fallout Shelter, and
Yeah.
I remember the sound guy loved that record, and I
Mm-hmm.
remember that was the first time I heard that record. I'm just going, dude, this is like the perfect mix, and this is where you see a lot of those styles that just kind of didn't get there, where you felt
Yep.
like they were gonna get there, but it just
Yeah.
didn't. That's one of those that industrial, quote unquote
Yep.
type of style. Oh man, it's just it's
Yeah.
it, it the, I feel like we had a lot of those eye opening or like whoa moments in this year. I
Oh,
felt
I
like there was
think
a
so.
lot of those records that did that to us, if that makes
the
sense.
the interesting thing about this, I'm going to try to kind of just summarize really quickly a few
Sure.
things because I don't want to get bogged down, but
Yeah, yeah.
you see the absolute rise of death metal here.
Correct.
We've got Bolt Thrower, Deicide, Obituary, and the list goes on and on. Dream Theater releases Images and Words,
Which starts a whole genre of
which,
prog
yep,
rock type of
yeah,
metal.
you
Yeah.
have an 8-minute song on the radio and on MTV.
Crazy.
Pull Me Under,
Yep.
right? Great song. I mean, great record, honestly. Don't care for anything they've done since then, to be perfectly honest. But man, how crazy, because I was a fan of their first record too, with the different singer.
Right.
I still love that record actually. And then when I heard this, I was like, good God, how incredible. And I thought nobody's going to give a shit. They are doing quite well for themselves to
Yes, they
this
are.
day.
Yeah.
Apparently, a lot of neck bearded guitar players really like to go to shows. That's mean. I don't mean that. They're a good band. They're great players. But like how amazing. Oh, Godflesh is another band that should go in the industrial conversation.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm scrolling. Um, but I think that Dream Theater, that's a real moment that is important this year in 1992 that happened. We also see not. I'm going to skip around. You can stop me anytime you want. So we have death metal, we have prog metal being
Yep.
birthed, and there's some other things like Edge of Sanity and what was the other one? I just saw it. Anyway, Edge of Sanity is a good one. I'll think of the other one. Uh, Post metal is born because Neurosis released Souls at Zero, and that literally changed a lot. Like I remember hearing that and it blew my mind because and now you have that's a whole thing. Like there's all this post metal stuff where it's these bands that write these big lumbering epics, that sound like the world is churning into dust, which I personally love. Nocturnus was the other prog band. Um, there's so many things that happened that year that became like long standing, like they genres were like either solidified or born in
Totally.
1992, and that's crazy to me. Like you said, the fact that, and I would almost put Dream Theater into the Tool category, where you were saying, would you have ever thought that when you heard Pull Me Under the first time that in 2022 we'd be having a conversation about the relevance of that band?
Definitely not, because I feel like that band. Here's an interesting point, right? 1992 is really known, like if you look at just the surface, as the year that killed hair metal,
Yep.
right? Right.
Yeah.
That's the year of the grunge. But if you
Right.
look at this list we're talking about, grunge didn't really kill, and grunge went away pretty fast. If you think about it, it had
Yep.
like what, a 4 year shelf life, probably.
Yeah, right around then.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But this list shows you that there was so many other styles of music that were
Yeah.
ready to pop. And
Yep.
and that's one of those things where it's like you look at a Dream Theater, it's like how does a Dream Theater sell 500,000 copies of that record
Yeah.
in that time period? I can tell you one thing, and you probably agree with me on this. Grunge doesn't really get important until about the summer to fall of 92, in my opinion, in
I would
terms of
agree with that.
how big it became, right?
Yep. Yeah, I
So
think because there's only two grunge albums on this list.
right.
Air quotes grunge. That you have Dirt and you have Stone Temple Pilots Core.
Yeah,
That's it.
that's it.
Everything, and granted, this is Metal Injection. I'm sure if we wanted to really dig, but like, yeah, I guess Rage got kind of co-opted into that scene, but not as a grunge band, just as the new alternative metal,
Sure.
whatever. What is this kind of vibe, right? But everything else that we're looking at, Nine Inch Nails too, I suppose. Everything else here is like there, there's quite the tapestry of styles that if you scroll through this list really quickly, I mean, it's pretty impressive that like what a time to be alive, man. Like all these records are, whether I like some of them or not, it's like, oh yeah, I remember that. I remember
Yep.
that.
Yep.
Love that one. Oh shit, yeah, that I forgot about that. Um, and to think that that happened for a few years in a row, arguably, right around that time, the early 90s were like, man, there was just this prolific moment in music, and like good, different, like adventurous things were happening.
I agree with you. I think 90 to 93, maybe even a little bit of 94 is just like,
Yep.
wow, there's so much. There's so much. And, you can say time periods and what your age is and stuff like that, because, we could look at kids in the early 2000s and they'd be like, this is an amazing time for music and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I respect that, but it's like,
Sure.
my God, this year, 91 and 92 for me were the 2 years that were like, there was so much movement. I want to ask you a couple quick questions,
Sure.
just like a couple word answer, not like a speed round thing or something like that. But
Right.
I'm curious. So, um, Give me a record that holds up out of this list today.
Overall,
Yeah, like where you
like
hear
with
it,
with no apologies or
you're just
exceptions.
like, this record still holds up today.
Just one.
Well, I know.
Uh, Dirt, Dehumanizer, The Fourth Crusade by Bolt Thrower. Um, yeah, those would probably be, well, that I still listen to. I would say that's probably Dirt and Dehumanizer. We'll
Yeah,
stick with those.
I'm gonna disagree. I'm gonna agree, not disagree. I think Dirt's
Yeah,
the one. Dirt's the one for me. That's just like holy shit.
yeah.
What's the one that doesn't hold up for you? And these could be
Mm,
records. I'm thinking about records that you liked back then that
yeah.
you realize just didn't hold up. And that's not a dig on a band per se, because God knows me and you have written music that did not hold up
Oh, for sure.
20, 30 years ago, right?
I've made a career out of it. Um, ooh, let's see. How unpopular do I want to
I'm
be?
curious. I think me and you have the same answer, but I'm curious.
Okay. I will say there's a few. There's a good number of them,
Do you
and
want me to
some of
give you
them.
mine so I take more of the heat?
No, I'm just gonna vulgar display of power.
Yep, absolutely. I completely agree with you. Completely agree with you
Um,
on that
yeah,
one.
I sorry. I
No,
don't I don't think I don't think Pantera's aged well. And I know that a lot of metalheads will scoff and talk shit, and that's fine. I just don't feel like it's aged well. I think other than nostalgia and the reverence for Dimes playing, I don't want to listen to this anymore.
I uh I respect the hell out of what it did for a genre.
Yeah,
I definitely have to appreciate it for what it did for my writing, you know what I mean, and whatnot. But at the same time, I can't disagree with you, man. I think the tones are definitely did not hold up over time.
no,
Um, the playing is really good, but it's
yeah,
it's just not it, no. That's the one that doesn't hold up for me either. And I kind of
yeah,
knew me and you were going to agree on that one. Um,
yeah.
what album did you not like at first off of this list that you enjoy now? Is there a specific
Oh,
one?
that's a really good question. I hadn't thought about that one. Oh, we haven't even talked about White Zombie either, but not really, but we don't have to. It's great.
Doesn't hold up either. That could be another one that
Doesn't hold
doesn't
up
hold
either.
up.
Yeah, it doesn't. That the Biohazard record. There's a lot of them.
Yep.
The record I didn't like then, but I do now.
It's
I
hard.
have. That's a tough one because I mean, there's a lot of records I didn't like then that I still don't. Um, okay, okay. I think I know which one it is. All right. I'm going to say Cannibal Corpse, Tomb of the Mutilated.
Okay.
Um, I I didn't hate it, but they weren't my cup of tea. Um, and to be fair, that like maybe that's not a good choice. Fuck, because I still don't
It's a
like the
hard it's a
Chris
hard
Barnes era.
it's a hard question, man. Dehumanizer was the answer for me
Right.
because I didn't give it a fair shake when it came out.
Oh well, Dark Throne, A Blaze in the Northern Sky. That definitely I did not like at all now, and I do or then and I do now. My black metal didn't make sense to me at that time.
Sure.
Um, yeah, I think that Immortal record. I love that Manowar record though. Holy shit.
Good old Manowar.
Dude, Triumph of Steel, baby. That's a good one.
It's a good question
Um,
though, isn't it? Because it makes you
it
think
is.
about
It's it's tough because the things that I liked are like really immediate. The things I didn't like, I kind of still don't. I can maybe appreciate them a little bit, but there's things on here I'm like, why is this even on here?
yeah.
But I will say that I guess if I had to go back around, I would probably say the Dark Throne record,
Okay.
oddly enough. Yeah, probably the Dark Throne record.
Any of these records are you curious to give a second chance to after seeing the list? Like you
Yeah.
look at it and go, man, you know what? I want to listen to that record again.
Yeah. The At the Gates record, actually, I remember getting that when it came out, and I just didn't get it. Um, and then a couple of years later, they put out Slaughter of the Soul, which I think is one of the most perfect extreme metal records ever created.
There's a lot of people
Uh,
that really love that band. I know at Maytown when I was working there, all the people working at Maytown were just all over At the Gates.
Slaughter of the Soul is a perfect record. Tone wise, playing wise, songwriting wise, it's bulletproof. It was genre defying, and nobody cared until 10 years later.
It's crazy, right? That's another one of
Yeah.
those perfect example bands, like we were
Yep.
talking about the stoner, doom,
Yeah. Yeah.
band style of music. If that makes
So I would be curious to listen to that one again and see if it makes sense to me. I don't expect that I'm going to like it all that much, but I would be curious to revisit it. Um, just for argument's sake, I have a bit of morbid curiosity to go ahead and just listen to that Exodus record.
you know what's that I had a feeling you were going to say that, which is kind of funny. For me,
Yeah,
I'm going to listen to Angel Dust again.
I wish you would.
Yeah, I'm going to.
I'm telling you, if it, I will buy you a sandwich if you don't like that record.
All
Like,
right, sounds good.
I'll buy you a sandwich anyway, um, but I'll get you a foot long if you don't like,
There you
the
go.
no.
Great.
Angel Dust is it's an important one, and it's really something.
See, because
I think.
I respect it from what I know from my fellow musicians and whatnot. I just need to sit down with it. And this brings up something that's interesting. Um, I feel like you have to be in the right mood or place to listen to a record, and I don't think a lot of people do that. So one of the things I do nowadays is if I'm going to listen to something, I'm going to
Hmm.
go, all right, I'm going to be in this frame of mind to listen to this record because let's
Yeah,
say like, let's just say new Jerry Cantrell solo album, right?
sure.
If I'm not in the mood to listen to that style of music and I'm
Hmm.
more in like I don't know, let's just start another band name. I mean, I'm listening to Toxicity by System of a Down, right? I'm not going to
Right.
like that Jerry Cantrell record
No.
because I'm not in that frame of mind. And I think a lot of people kind of don't do that, you know what I mean? Or don't give it a fair shake. And everything I try to do is listen to a record like 3 times before
Yeah.
I make up my mind, unless it's just really bad and you can tell it's bad and you're like, I don't need to give it 3 times. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that we as music fans are all the same in the way that, like, I will go through phases where, like, I have a I have something that I'm into right now, whether it's like for a while I just was really into death metal, like a year or two ago. I just was
Right.
in love with death metal and black metal, and that's kind of all I wanted to listen to. And other things would come, and I'd be like, yeah, I get it, it's really good, but I just want to listen to, like, I just want to grind my face off. So that's where I'm at. And
Right.
then all of a sudden it's like, nah, I just want to listen to, like, the Night Flight Orchestra and, like, do that weird, like, modern version of yacht rock and really cool melodic stuff. And I went through like a traditional metal thing where, and when I'm in this mode where it's like I don't really want to hear that type of stuff, like I'm in this place, I don't want to reach out.
Yeah.
uh it can kind of rob other albums of their power or their beauty. So I agree with you, but I try to really reflect when that happens, where I'll hear something and be like, I understand this is really good, I'm just not in the place where this is what I want to hear.
Which I think
So
is
I'll just shelve it and then
I,
come back to it.
I think that's really smart. Last question for you today, and thank you so
Shoot.
much for being generous with your time. I knew this was going to be a
Always.
ton of fun to do. Give me a record from '92 that's not on this list that's important to you, and it doesn't have to be metal. It doesn't have to be because I have two for me, and neither one of them are metal.
Oh God, damn it. I didn't look up a list of everything that came out in 1992, and my chronological stuff probably isn't that strong.
Let's do this real quick.
Yeah.
If you're on your computer, jump
Yeah,
on 92.
I am.
I will tell you and the listeners. My two are Black Crowes, Southern Harmony and Musical Companion, which I think is almost a
Great
perfect
record.
record in terms of them capturing a sound. It's phenomenal. And Mark Ford is such an underrated guitar player. Like
Yep.
the tones on that record are just fantastic. It's an important record for me growing up, and it was one of those ones that just spoke to me. The second record I thought was really important was a single soundtrack for me. And
Okay.
it was one of those ones where you got a taste of more of that scene, and you got songs that weren't the big popular songs. It also introduced me to Wood, going,
Yeah.
"Ooh, Alice in Chains doesn't sound like Alice in Chains from what I know of them." It also introduced me to Mother Love Bone, which
Yep.
I am forever grateful for because I absolutely adore that band. And there's no Nirvana song on there, which I thought was a
Yeah.
bold statement for doing a Seattle movie record soundtrack and not having Nirvana on there. I thought that was absolutely brilliant
They
move
probably
by
couldn't clear
Henry.
the license.
You think so?
Yeah.
You know,
I bet Geffen was like, nah, we're good.
I also love the Soundgarden choices. I
Yeah.
love the Pearl Jam choices. I mean, it's a cool record to me because it's not like, oh, here's Even Flow. Oh, here's
Is that the one
this.
that
Here's that.
that's Birth Ritual, right?
Birth Ritual, yeah. Because they could
Man,
have put out Shine down there. They could have
goddamn
put
that
whatever,
song.
but that song's amazing, dude. I mean,
Yeah.
you want to know why Cornell's probably the best singer in that genre? Of pretty much
Yeah.
the last
No,
30
I know.
years. It's that song. It's unbelievable. So give me your 92 selection before we get out of
Okay.
here.
All right. So I just looked up a really quick list and I'm gonna give you three,
Okay.
and they're gonna be weird. All right. So the first one might be a little obvious, but I would say Sweet Oblivion by Screaming Trees.
Oh, nice choice. Nice choice.
Um, I think that Lanigan's voice is
So cool.
in- incredible, like just dark, like rich, molassesy sadness. And
And
I love
you
it.
get a little taste of that on the Sap record, and
Yep. Yeah, you do. Well, and even he worked with Queens of the Stone Age
yep,
on a few things, and I just think that guy is he's unbelievable. Okay, three more. Sorry,
no
The
problems.
Predator by Ice Cube and Don't Sweat the Technique by Eric B. and Rakim.
Great choices.
Both those records were huge for me at that time. And the last one, Little Earthquakes by Tory Amos.
You know what? That's a great choice because it's one of those choices that a lot of musicians respect and love her, and that's
Mm,
the record that they. And it's great too because, and we'll close on this,
yes.
is music, and however it moves you. And the more diversified you are, I think listening to music, it shows how much different types of music can grab you. And that's a
Yeah.
perfect example of a absolutely real, like, Tori Amos to me is kind of like Elaine Staley, where you
Yep.
absolutely believe everything coming out of her mouth the way she sings. It's
Yeah.
so fucking, and it's another record that's so different in that time period. How does that record
Hmm.
exist? It doesn't fit into any boxes, but yet
Yep.
again, people absolutely love it.
Yeah, I think she God, and there's also that Sade album that came out that year that was really beautiful,
Fuck.
uh but like Tori, she was so different, you
Yeah,
know. I mean,
so different.
and even some of those covers she was putting out at the time, like she
Yeah,
would cover like
yeah.
grunge songs, and
Smells
she
Like
did
Teen
Raining.
Spirit is really interesting.
Yeah,
And I'm on
so
Fire by
cool.
Springsteen is another one that's
Yep.
like, holy shit.
I want to say, and I could be wrong, but I swear there's a version of her doing Raining Blood.
I think there is. No, I think you're correct.
And like, but like, beautiful voice,
Yep. Quirky.
great piano. Interesting that she was piano centric.
Yeah.
Um,
Classically trained too, I believe.
classically trained, and she was in a rock band, that Why Can't Tori Read,
Yep.
I think, which I didn't care for, but yeah, I think she was such a unique artist and voice that like it was kind of undeniable that if you were a music fan, it was like, man. And her second record, the one that follows that, is even better.
And you know what's funny? She knocks down the doors for people, and I'm not going to go all female because it's obvious, right? But Annie DeFranco,
Yep.
Another person that grabs me, but there's no vocals, but has that quirkiness. Michael Hedges, who I know you
Yeah.
absolutely love, like
Oh,
that type of
yeah.
style of stuff where it's like you can be quirky and interesting and still have your place in
Yes.
the big music world. And I think that's why that record's so important,
I agree. I agree.
Wonderful talk today, man. Thanks for being on the
Always.
show. I really enjoy talking music with you, and I know the listeners are going to love this episode. So,
Well, I hope so.
any last words? I know maybe we'll get some hate emails. I don't want to say mail because who sends mail anymore,
Maybe
but which would be
we
great.
just told people that vulgar display of power isn't good anymore.
I
You prepare yourself for the firestorm.
You know what? I might have to put that as my thing going. Why we don't like vulgar display of power. And see how much people listen to it for that.
No, I mean I don't expect people to understand it. They don't have to. If you love it, God bless you. Enjoy it.
And we did too at one point too. You know what I mean? So.
Oh no, I
you know what I mean?
loved it.
Yeah.
Like all capitals, cap lock. Loved Pantera. I just don't anymore.
No, and I'm with you on that. And there's a lot of other bands that are like that too. There's definitely bands I loved back in the day that I'm like, no, I can't really listen to that ever again. It's
for sure. Okay, what was the question? What am I doing?
I just wanted to ask if there's anything you wanted to add before I let you go, my friend.
No, I mean, I guess people can still certainly check out The Weight of the Tide on all your streaming services. We are slowly but surely in process of getting our shit together and writing new tunes. So we haven't disappeared. We're just sleeping. I'm on Instagram at FN Moots, as in FN. You can see all my tattoos and very little else. Yeah, I think that's about it. That's me.
That's perfect, brother.
Everything's good.
Right on, man.
Stay safe.
That's the most important thing, dude. And thanks for listening today, guys. And check out Mark. Support him. He's a great dude, a great musician. And if you're actually, you don't even have to be in the area. If for some reason you end up in Reno or you want to get an excellent tattoo done, he works over at Marked Studios. And it's a great place to get some professional work done. So. And Reno's a neat little place to come visit. So if you live somewhere far away, man, make a trip to Reno, lose some money gambling, and get a really nice tattoo.
That's right.
Here's some great music too, because there's a lot of great bands in this town too
that is true,
that do not get discovered that should. So, all right, my brother, have yourself a safe week, man, and we'll talk soon.
You too.
For sure.
All right, thank you, man.
Take care.